Our in-studio guest is the host of the Turn on the Jets podcast, Will Parkinson, who last night was at Lincoln Financial Field watching Shane Gillis set the world record for the most tickets sold to an individual comedy show, 76,000 plus at a football stadium for a stand-up comedy show. I know Dave Chappelle was there. Meek Mill came out. You were telling me off air, Will. What was that like?
Yeah, it was interesting, man. It was we get there, and Jason Kelsey comes out. He's fired up doing the Eagles chants, which it is what it is. And then he's like, "I've had dreams about this guy for a while." And I'm like, he's not going to bring out Meek Mill at a Shane Gillis concert. Meek Mill comes out, does Dreams and Nightmares, and then later on, 3-6 Mafia, who I haven't heard of since the Attitude Era of the WWE, comes out, and Chappelle comes out on stage. Had a few cocktails before he came out. He was ready to go, man. It was awesome.
I mean, Shane Gillis, the way that he has blown up the last couple of years, kind of insane.
It's wild. He's just got such an interesting, in some ways, very Chappelle-like. It's a very some crude humor, but no, it's he's awesome. He's obviously incredibly charismatic and funny. And Cooper DeJean, Jordan Mailata, the entire Eagles staff basically was entire roster was there. It felt like.
It must be nice to have a good football team, huh?
Yeah, it must be nice to be in playoff games every year.
Yeah, I'm sure. Will Parkinson with us. He is a huge Jets guy, has a podcast, Turn on the Jets, part of the Badlands Family of Networks, also covers the entire league as well. So training camp's coming up for both the Jets and the Giants, so I thought it'd be a good time to get a little state of both teams as we head towards the NFL season finally being upon us. We'll start with the Jets, Will. For you, what is the biggest training camp storyline Jet fans need to be paying close attention to?
I think it's going to be David Bailey and the rookies. I think as much as we want to talk about some of these veterans, we kind of know who Demario Davis is, right? We know who Minkah Fitzpatrick is. And to some extent, we know who Geno Smith is. Obviously, we're not sure if we're getting 2022 or 2025 Geno Smith. But, without the pads on, OTAs, we heard a little bit about Cooper, a little bit about Pons. Sadiq was obviously, injured and didn't play. So we didn't hear a lot about David Bailey, Jake, and highest drafted defensive player in franchise history. What does he look like in pads? What's he look like in an NFL, in an NFL field? And I think that storyline of if he's good right away and he's going against Armand Membu, Olu Fashion every day, and we're getting the tweets from me, you, Zach, Kaz, Rich, whoever it is, and it's like David Bailey had his third sack of practice today. We're going to be like, interesting. Like now you're starting to get a little excited because I think Cooper, Sadiq, and Pons are going to be classic, training camp guys where skill players usually shine a little bit, 7-on-7, 1-on-1s, but we're starting to get some David Bailey hype, and you start to say, hey, the defense had a higher floor with some of the additions, again, they made throughout the veteran market. If David Bailey's good right away, I think the ceiling of this team raises significantly, and if he's not good right away, not saying it hurts the floor, but again, it's kind of hard to figure out if they're going to reach that 7, 8, 9 win potential I think people are hoping for on the more optimistic side.
I can't remember a number 2 pick in the draft that feels like is being completely under-discussed amongst Jet fans.
We don't talk about him ever.
And nationally. I mean, I guess the other example in recent Jet history is, well, they took Zach, who's a quarterback, so you take Zach Wilson second overall. Of course, all eyes are on him, but there's been other Jet first-round picks that have been more discussed than David Bailey. I remember the Will McDonald pick. People didn't like it because it's like, we're taking another pass rusher. Like, that was discussed more than David Bailey going number 2 to the Jets after an abysmal 3-win season.
It feels like we talked about it the entire – me and you obviously talked quite a bit about it leading up to the draft. And the day of the draft, there was like 900 shows, 900 podcasts betting on, David Bailey versus Arvell Reese. What are they going to do at 2? There was the David Bailey right before the 2 days before the NFL does this, like the players are meeting some of the media and stuff like that. And he's like, I never visited the Jets, and I don't really know who Darren Muji is, type of thing. And then he gets drafted, and it was like, we stopped talking about it literally 10 minutes later. Like, oh, my God, they took Kenny and Sadiq, and oh, my God, they took trade up for Omar Cooper. And then day 2 is all about D'Angelo Pons and trading back and just the high of night 1. So, no, I agree with you. It'll be interesting with Bailey because, again, if Bailey's good right away, which I think we both expect him to have quite a high floor, it's about can he reach like the superstar pass rusher, or is he just going to be kind of good where Will McDonald's in that good tier, right? He's a productive pass rusher, but you kind of want a little bit more out of him. But Enagbare, Osai, Will McDonald, and Bailey, like if Bailey's good and Will McDonald's more of the player we saw 12 months ago, this defensive line now is a really good group, not just an okay group with solid veterans. It's like there's an exciting player in Bailey. McDonald's a solid player. And then even, Juwan Briggs, Harrison Phillips, David Onyemata, there's a core group there where you start to be like, hey, again, the floor can be raised for this team where it should be a respectable defense. Maybe it's middle of the pack, but Jake, after last year, middle of the pack feels quite good.
Do you trust the head coach who has now taken over the play calling and said that play calling is a superpower? Because let's be real, we could get into the Glenn discussion as we move along in this segment here, but a big part of him keeping his job for a third year is, all right, man, you're taking over the defense. That's your area of expertise. That's what helped get you the job in the first place. You put the target on your back by calling your superpower play calling. We got to see it because all the points you just made about the roster, the improvements, the guys they added, it's fair. This should be at least a bare minimum respectable defense.
Yeah, 100%. I think, Jake, I think I've, in my head, have gone to, can this be, again, a top 5 special teams unit? I think we both feel really good about Chris Banjo. I think Jason Sanders actually should be a solid kicking option. The guy who's kicked really well in MetLife before. I think he had a 7 field goal game maybe it was 2019 against the Jets. So he's comfortable kicking in that environment. Austin McNamara has been a really good punter, and the return game's really good. And obviously, we think the coverage unit with Stiggers and Kane and Arian Smith, the GOAT. Other than that, right? So then the offensive side of the football, we can talk about that. But the defense, I think, needs to be, with Aaron Glenn at the helm, if he can get them to be a middle-of-the-pack group that turns the football over. I'm not expecting the 2022 Jets defense, or not. We're not going to go back to the 2010, 2009, 2010. 2022, this was a top 5 defense in the league, but I think many people's concern with that group was very bend, don't break. They got after the quarterback, but we don't feel like they finished enough plays that year, and then they didn't turn the football over ever. It felt like they still were not getting enough interceptions, forcing enough fumbles. If the Jets can be very much like those Lions defenses in 23 and 24, where they gave up some big plays for sure. I'm okay giving up big plays if I'm going to turn the football over. I'm going to create points. Nishan Wright, a guy they brought over, led the league in interceptions last year. Like, he's going to give up some points, but if he's going to also turn the football over, get you advantageous situations. If Glenn can coach some of that into this defense unit, as we both know, 0 interceptions a year ago. They forced, I think, 3 fumbles. That's not good enough. So I don't really care as much from a Glenn perspective if this is the 18th defense versus the 11th. I care if, are they creating points? Are they putting themselves in the offense in good situations? Hey, Geno Smith's getting 2 drives a game inside the 50. And it's like they're pretty much automatic points. That's kind of the modern-day defense, unless you're a Seattle that's just an elite unit. I'd like to see more of a unit that's exciting, that can create turnovers, opportunistic, and honestly hits the quarterback and stops the run. They give up yards in the middle of the field. If they can limit teams to 3 when they get inside the red zone, and again, this run defense should be much improved. That's got to be a big thing. Glenn's all about those bigger bodies inside, those big 2-gapping nose tackles, Tavondre Sweat and Phillips and Onyemata that can do some of that, and then some of those bigger guys. And Eneg Barr, they signed again a guy who's known a 265-pound 5-tech that can stop the run. Like, their run defense was putrid. Again, these things need to improve. Where I don't care so much about the number ranking per se. It's more of how does it look and preparedness, right, Jake? You talk so much about this, here and on your shows as well. Like, they cannot look overmatched every week. If they get overmatched sometimes, that's okay. It can't be every week where you're like, ooh, what was that? It's got to be a pretty consistent group week in, week out.
The Tuesday to Saturday preparation has to be a lot better, including, of course, Sundays, the game day. From a Glenn standpoint, the clock management was abysmal at times last year, timeouts, the whole thing. But just hopefully the coaching staff in general that he basically got to rehire, minus Chris Banjo, who was a great hire on special teams, is a lot better. Will Parkinson is our guest. Check out his podcast, Turn on the Jets, part of the Badlands family of network podcasts. So, Will, you mentioned Geno Smith. He's not going to be charged with any wrongdoing in the alleged battery down in Florida from his ex-girlfriend / assistant, whatever. No charges being levied. So, besides the fact he can't carry a driver's license with him when he gets pulled over twice over the last couple months, he should be ready to roll for camp next week. What are reasonable expectations for Geno Smith, who comes in off a season where he led the NFL in picks and has 32 INTs over the last 2 years, which leads the NFL?
Yeah, I think reasonable expectations for Geno. Again, I kind of talked about this with the defense, but I kind of feel the same way with Geno, where he's got a great group on the offensive line, a good group on the offensive line with potential to be great. He's got a good group of skill guys with potential to be great, right? I think we all really like what they've added to this core. This offensive roster is very exciting. Most of the offensive lines, sub 26 years old, homegrown guys. Most of the pass catchers are all sub 4.40 guys, all, under the age of 25, 26. And most of them homegrown guys. With Geno, I think I use this comparison, and I know people are going to probably be like, this is a weird. Can he be a slightly less risk-averse Jameis Winston when Jameis was more in like the age where he's starting 17 weeks a year where, Geno's going to turn the football over. Let's be honest.
Is he going to give us a 30-30 season?
Yeah, is he going to give us can he give you 25 touchdowns, 14 picks, and 3,800 yards where it's an exciting, Garrett's getting his targets. You feel comfortable going forward. You can actually evaluate Sadiq, Taylor, Cooper. I think that's part of the biggest thing here is they haven't even been able to evaluate who's on the roster offensively the last couple of years because of so many other things going on. And last year, as we all know, could you take anything away from Mason Taylor's year other than Mason had some nice moments. He had some moments you were catch the football there. But with Justin Fields, a quarterback, and Brady Cook, it's I don't even know what to expect. So
he had one touchdown reception last year. Trivia: who was the quarterback?
It was Breece Hall, right? Yeah,
Breece Hall's the one who threw Mason Taylor his only touchdown.
No, it's just to me. I think with Geno, I'd like to see Geno play 17 games, and Jake. I think fair expectations, and I think in a dream world for the Jets, this is what happens: is again, take win total out of it for just the sake of this argument. Geno's good enough this year that you feel comfortable bringing him back next year with a rookie quarterback, where Geno can be opening camp as the starter still. He can probably play the first month of the season where the Jets can actually properly slow roll a rookie quarterback in 2027 where Geno's still playing at a high enough level. He's becomes a good bridge quarterback for you. I think the nightmare scenario is he's so bad that you have to go to Klubnik and stuff, and then Klubnik's also not ready to play, and you kind of ruin him. And then it's you're just caught in this weird spot. I know for a draft pick it's probably the right move, but I just think for Geno and the Jets, fair expectations is, can he be the 18th to 20th best quarterback in the league? Fine. Isn't losing you a ton of games, isn't winning a ton of games, but he's able to evaluate the rest of the offensive skill talent because if he can do that, you feel really good about it. Is A.D. Mitchell, Jake, really a number 2 or is he a number 4 and we're just getting excited about him, right? Is Omar Cooper showing this promising target of wow, man, he could be a really good group of 11 personnel. Look at Cooper, Mitchell, and Wilson. We don't even need to add a receiver in round 1 next year. Or, do you get out there and you say, wow, a lot of the hype for AD is not great and things like that. So, yeah, generally speaking, I just think Geno being able to let everyone get evaluated properly, play 17 games, and give the Jets a chance week in, week out to be a competitive outfit, and we actually properly I don't want to have Glenn have the excuse of, well, Geno got hurt in week 2. We can't evaluate Glenn now. And then it's you're in this no man's land. I want to know, is Glenn the guy or not? Is Geno good enough to be back as a bridge guy? And is this young core legitimately good enough? Because then you feel good about Muji or good about Glenn or not good about any of them, which is unfortunately entirely a possibility.
Well, I feel like if you're the Jets, if Glenn is just awful, this is the good year to be awful. You got the 3 first-round picks. We all believe the quarterback class is going to be better. If Glenn is just okay, though, and you're deciding whether or not to keep him, I don't know if Woody feels this way, but I know I feel this way as a Jet fan. I got to move on to that point because when would the Jet job ever be this attractive? 3 ones, $100 million in cap space. I think we all agree there's some good young players on this team. The offensive line has 2 stud tackles. You feel good about some of the weapons they added, including Garrett, who signed, Breece is signed. We think David Bailey's going to be good. There's players on both sides of the ball. If they win 7 games, but it's they beat the Bills and they're resting all their starters the last week to get to 7, or they get off to this 1-5 start and then win some games late. That to me is not good enough. So I don't know if it's a win total. I think it's partly winning and partly optics. But if I'm on the fence, I got to move on because I feel like you actually have one of the more attractive jobs in the NFL. Not to mention, I doubt there's 10 openings around the league next year. The Jets would be one of the best openings in football.
Yeah, the good thing is, I'm glad. I know, you've, and credit to you for this, you've been hey, I've been very convicted in your take that, hey, I would have moved on last year. The reason I'm happy they didn't is it was such a saturated market from a coaching perspective. And the Jets were not an appealing job going into this year. Yeah, they could have been appealing in some ways of the draft picks and stuff, but they still were in this weird flux window where now one more offseason, Muji's had his imprints. And to Glenn's credit, he's had his imprints on this offseason as well. Now it's if Glenn's not the guy, and to your point, you have to know, right? This cannot be and this is why I know as a fan, I guess you want to see them either be awful and they're picking one, or they're a fringe playoff team that's really competing. Because then either way, Glenn's either the guy or is not. To your point, being in no man's land, it probably would shade he's not the guy because this would be 2 years. And unless there's significant improvement, we're wow, Glenn got so much out of Pons and Bailey, and Frank Reich's and Geno are the issue. That's the one caveat where they win 70 games, but it's, hey, all the young players are developing. It's Geno was just killing them in the
Or it's
fourth
like,
quarter.
to your point, it's like Robert Saleh, for all his faults as head coach, the Jets were 6-3 in his second year, 7-4. Mike White played that game after Thanksgiving against the Bears. He gets hurt. I'm convinced that team's a playoff team. And yes, they collapsed. They finished 7-10. But like my big thing is Aaron Glenn ever going to be 3 games above 500 as the Jet coach? Like they won 7 games because of Saleh's defense. Here's Glenn saying defense is his superpower.
Yeah, you got to see it.
Like, go out there and show us that you actually have a feel. And if the team just can't win because they're facing Josh Allen and Mahomes and Herbert and they're just outmanned, at quarterback, all right, we understand that. And you have the 3 ones to now get your guy. But I got to see it because there's not one thing you could point to that Aaron Glenn did well in his first year. And he's here, and I'm hoping he proves me and many doubting him wrong because I'm a Jet fan at the end of the day. But like he has no excuse to not have a team that is, scrappy, that's in the hunt, that's not, mathematically eliminated before Columbus Day. And what worries me, Will, you and I are going to be in Nashville for week 1. They lose to Saleh, then it's the Packers, then it's the Lions, then it's the Bears. You're potentially looking at an 0-4 start before you play the Browns in week 5. And like last year, it all snowballed after losing week 1 to Rodgers and the Steelers. That cannot happen this year.
I know. That's why, as much as I don't want to say week 1, I think they have to win one of the first 2 weeks. I don't think it's I think you'd like to win week 1 knowing just for the optics of it, the Lol Jets narratives, the Saleh of it all, the Jermaine Johnson and JFM and Tony Adams and Aaron Whitecotton and Solomon. I mean, it's pretty weird. They running back the 2022 Jets and Giants 3 years later or 4 years later for the Titans is going to be an interesting theory. But I think to your point, this is a team that is not like the Bengals of the last couple of years where they start 0-2 and it's like, well, we have Burrow and we're going to get hot. They need to win one of these first 2 weeks. And if they win week 1, which I think is a very real discussion, and I think both teams, there's a world in which the Jets win week 1 and we feel really good, and there's a world where they look terrible and we're like, what the hell's going on? Then you come home if you're 1-0 and you're like, oh, the Packers have never won a game without Micah Parsons. They went from the third best pressure rate in the NFL to the worst pressure rate in the entire league. They blew every game because they couldn't get to the quarterback, and Jordan Love's he's got a little, early year Geno sometimes in him where he tries to do a little too much, and Jordan Love's a better player than Geno, obviously. But the point is, there's a world in which they're 2-0 and there's a world in which they're 0-4. And it's it's such a fine line. And this is going to come down to, as we've talked about, not just the young players, but can Glenn have a really good game plan for a LaFleur offense that he faced a ton in Green Bay and had some success against? You need to be able to have more success. And part of, again, why you got this job is not just as a culture builder, but also you were you got better as a defensive coordinator every year. We got to see it. And now it's there's no Steve Wilkes excuse. There's no Justin Fields excuse. There's no Aaron Rodgers and Robert Saleh excuse. Now it's these are your guys, right? Again, they bring in DeMario, Onyemata, Minka, these guys that know his system, know his scheme, can vouch for him culturally. On the offensive side of the football, they have plenty of weapons. The offensive line's good enough. Frank Reich's a proven guy in this league, and they bring in a Seth Ryan as well, who's supposed to be this young Ben Johnson kind of protege of the passing game coordinator. So I'm not saying building this up as a Super Bowl team. I'm just saying there is enough here to be competitive. And I'm sorry, I'm not saying the Titans won't be a fun team this year, but I don't feel like the Jets can go into week 1 and not expect to win. And they have to start believing, and I know it's the viral Glenn clip, and I hope that this happens because it's happened in Detroit, and I hope this happens for the Jets selfishly for both of us. But they have to believe that they could be good again, and if they don't do that and they lose week 1, the belief in the fan base is going to be totally out the window right away.
Well, then week 2 becomes a must-win.
Yeah,
You're
and
playing
it's
the Packers, who are really good.
It's the worst place to be in week 2, where it should be we're 1-0, kind of we didn't expect to win this game, but hey, if we win this, go being 2-0 against Detroit, and hey, does Detroit overlook? You start to play these fun games in your mentally the win-win loss game.
Well, just give us a season where they're fake good for half
the
year.
Can you be 4-4 at 4-4 after 8? We're sitting there going, hey man, if they they upset the Chargers, they can stay alive, or they upset one of these 3 games against Buffalo, Kansas City, and LA in the middle of the season. It's just give yourself a shot to be a team that is not, it's not even about the playoffs right now. It's about I want to see, Jake, we've seen Garrett Wilson play 4 competitive football games in December in his entire career with the Jets. I'd love to see more big games from Garrett Wilson in a big spot, or again, we talked about David Bailey and these rookies early on. Pons and Cooper were phenomenal in that college football playoff run. Pons, obviously, the pick 6 against Dante Moore. He breaks Ty Simpson's back and forces the fumble there. It was amazing against Miami. Does D'Angelo Pons become this big game player where early in his career we're like, whoa, The Jets needed a stop. They needed a big play on third down from their defense, and D'Angelo Pons punches it out of DJ Moore's hands in week 18, and like, wow, he made this huge play, and you feel really good going into 2027. I don't want to have more meaningless games because it grows on you, and we saw with this last regime, as soon as things went south, they kind of started to fold a little bit because inherently they're like, we're going to lose. That cannot be the mentality. These guys have no excuse. Most of these guys are brand new here. You hope that, again, bringing in the DeMarios and Minkas of the world will help instill some of that culture, but cultures only go so far unless you win games, right? Like we talk about all the time, everything's rah-rah and good. You start 0-4, culture's a little tough.
Does he make it through the season, Aaron Glenn, if they start 0-4?
So my take is that because how much crap Woody got, and probably rightfully so for firing Saleh when he did, I think he liked that like everyone was like, hey, you gave Gase the whole year. You didn't have a quick trigger. Like Woody's
that was
not
more his
reactive.
brother, though, at that time.
Yeah, but I'm just thinking like he got so much PR backlash for the Saleh thing. I think he's going to go overboard the other way. And like in some ways, I know this sounds probably dumb, but if they start 0-4, 0-5, whatever it is, and they're like, whoa, man, they're tracking towards the Arch Manning, DJ Moore, CJ Carr, Drew Mestamaker sweepstakes. You probably want Glenn to finish the year because you want to just bottom out. Yeah, why would you just bottom out at that point? And then you're not reactive.
Right, and then no one could question, how could you fire Aaron
the Jets
Glenn
do this?
4 games in? You didn't give him enough time. It's like, all right, he's going to get 2 full years. If the Jets in year 1 win 3 games, and then they follow that up with another 3 or 4 win season, and he's got 7 total wins through 2 years.
The problem is it's clearly identified, and you don't have to worry about it. And then also you're picking exactly the spot you want to be picking in this draft.
All right, Asmaniacs, listen up for a second. No matter what you're watching, whether it's New York sports or any game you didn't plan on caring about, there's no better way to stay locked in than with PrizePicks. It's daily fantasy made simple. You're just picking more or less on player projections. That's it. No complicated lineups, no nonsense. Just you versus the numbers. And here's why I love it. Even if it's a game you normally wouldn't care about, once you got a lineup going, you're locked in. Every play matters, every drive matters, every at-bat matters. I've been mixing sports too. Maybe a little football, throwing some baseball, maybe some basketball, and now you've got action across the board all night, and PrizePicks makes it even better with features like early cash outs if your picks are hitting, the ability to mix multiple sports in one lineup, and you can even see what other people are playing and tail their picks. So if you haven't tried it yet, what are you doing? Download the PrizePicks app right now. Use code HMA. That's HMA, and you'll get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, it's HMA on PrizePicks. PrizePicks, where it always feels good to be right.
I mean, do you see a scenario where the Colts are awful and the Jets maybe could, if you want to be optimistic in July, Jet fans, the Jets have this fun season, and maybe Daniel Jones and the Colts, they're terrible like they were once he got hurt last year, and it's the Jets benefiting from having that Colts pick, and the Sauce Gardner trade continues to age like fine wine.
Yeah, that's the dream, right? Is like you can build a scenario where the Jets are more competitive than we think, and they win. Let's say they win 7 games. They're a competitive, feisty 7-win team. They're picking 11. The Colts bottom out because the schedule's really difficult, a lot of injuries. The roster's not quite as good as they kind of overachieved a lot last year with a really easy roster. I mean, a really easy schedule, and then Daniel Jones gets hurt, and they were a disaster. The wild card in this whole thing is they have the pick of Green Bay and Dallas's whoever has the better first-round pick. Every other year, Dak Prescott, who I love and would kill for to be the Jets quarterback, gets hurt every other year. And I'm not wishing Dak to get hurt, so I don't want anyone in my mention saying I was wishing for that. But look on Google. You go to his Pro Football Reference. It's 17 games played, top 5 in the MVP. Next year gets hurt immediately. And, like, does that happen? Is that the year the Cowboys just like, hey, man, it all falls apart for them? Or Jordan Love's been banged up a bunch, and the Packers have always kind of had this, like, they're always competitive. Do they, like, it's the Jets are due for something to break their way.
Well, this happened when they traded Jamal Adams, and they got the 2
Seattle bottomed out.
Russell Wilson got hurt, and that's why Garrett Wilson was picked 10th overall and not a different player in the late 20s
and we
or
thought
30s.
That was going to be, hey, the Jets will pick in the top 10 because the Jets were terrible, obviously. And then the Seattle pick was going to be 28, 30. Even though the Jets traded Sauce last year, and the Cowboys trade as well, I think we both thought, hey, they'll pick, top 5, and then they'll pick 27. and then the second round pick for the Cowboys will be in the late 50s. It ends up that's a top 45 pick, and then they obviously pick quite high with the Colts pick, and it just kept getting better and better. And then shout out to Phillip Rivers, fun story, but no, it is an interesting one, man. I think the dream is, if you're a Jets fan, the Jets are competitive, and one of those other three teams bottoms out, and you can still get the quarterback, and then use your own pick on Leonard Moore, Jeremiah Smith, and whatever it is, and you're like, wow, I have a super team kind of building here a little bit.
Got a minute left with you, Will. You cover the whole league in addition to the Jets. So what does success for the Giants in year one with John Harbaugh look like to you?
Success for John Harbaugh and the Giants is Jackson Dart's actually the guy, 100% is the guy, and you know it, you smell it, you live it, and you're like, going into year 3, you're like, this is 100% our franchise quarterback. I think the other things is just reestablishing the Giants being a team that wins home games, that can win in the division, not get embarrassed on national television, frankly, and be a competitive outfit that, hey, maybe the Giants win 7 or 8 games, but they're, again, a competitive bunch that you feel really good about the core, and especially like Neighbors is by the end of the year healthy. Dart's the guy. Abdul Carter looks like a force, and Harbaugh's at least had some just sustainability of like, hey, they can be now build on this year and one more offseason of picks and free agency signings, and they're going to be competing for the division. They cannot get embarrassed by Dallas on national television and getting run up or score run up on them and things like that. And Dart has to be healthy and the guy, because if Dart's the guy, frankly, success for the Giants that's a successful year. Like you figured it out.
Yeah, quarterback,
and you're good.
Yep.
You just cannot be leaving like Dart played 8 games. He looked good in 4 of them. The other 4, he had a concussion again and sprains the ankles out for 6 weeks. Like that's an unmitigated disaster.
Will, I appreciate you coming in studio. You and I are going to be at Fanatics Fest later today, hanging out with a bunch of Jet fans and other New York sports fans. So tell people where they could find you if they want to check out your podcast.
Yeah, Will, PA11 on all socials. Turn on the Jets podcast on the Badlands Podcast Network. We have our live event coming up August 22nd. Gotham Comedy Club. Come out. I'm sure Jake will be there.
Connor Rogers going to do some stand-up?
Connor Rogers is going to get on stage and do a Shane Gillis impression. Joe Caparoso is going to dress up like Tony Soprano. It's going to be fantastic. Jake, thanks for having me. It's been awesome.
Will Parkinson joining us in studio. We'll hit a break. We'll come back. More on the Yankees, who lost to the Dodgers last night, of course. Got some sound you're going to need to hear from Aaron Boone talking about Aaron Judge. A lot still to get into. Mets, Jets, Giants. We're going to hit all of it. Johan Santana is going to be joining me at 11:30 today. Jake Asman with you till noon right here on 880 ESPN New York.